Well, hello there. I hope that this video finds you at a good time on a good day. Or if you're struggling with something, maybe this will, help you remember that this is part of the journey. I've been reflecting a lot lately about belief systems, and I realized I've kind of carried this seed with me my entire life. This idea that the way that the way that the world seems is not all that there is, and that there's a belief system that has the ability to incorporate all aspects of the human experience, the pain, the suffering, the beauty, the joy. And it's a belief system that lives in me, and I'm getting closer to finding the words to being able to express what that belief system looks like in me. And it's interesting. I really felt called to share my journey online, which is kind of a hard thing to do in this way, because I'm a really creative person, and I'm fortunate that I have not given up on those dreams, and I continue to pursue creative endeavors to this day, through music, glass art, anything, really. And I've shared that online many times, but I realized sometimes the challenge with that experience is feeling this desire for validation, like external validation mostly, that somehow my existence on this planet is only valid if it is chosen by others. It's like we have that built into our psyche, and it's a hard one, because to be able to manifest one's destiny, one has to have an unwavering belief in oneself, and that is not possible if someone gives their power of belief away to another person. So I can only cherish the validation of others if it comes from a place where I believe wholeheartedly in myself and what I'm doing in this world. And we have gotten a little farther away from that experience, and the remnants that are left are, it seems like in some ways synonymous with an inflated sense of ego. But I understand why that is, and it's because in this incarnation, on this planet in particular, I don't know what other planets are like, but this one for sure is it's a closed loop resource system. So built into the biological form is the whole program where we must consume life force energy from other living creatures in order to survive. So that means in some way we will always create an internal hierarchy to justify our use of space and resources on this planet, and it's all subconscious. It's written into the blueprint of this particular planet. I don't know about others. And so, but what is also written into this planet is, if conditions aren't appropriate for survival, go back to the earth. It's like an internal gravity that says, like, things aren't right, go back to the earth. And we have to push through that. And the pushing through it is where ego comes in. It protects us from the pain uh, of that feeling of not being worthy of being on this planet. And then it creates an energetic, like, physical adrenaline response to push us through whatever barrier that is. If we and in the process, um, we also create personas that adapt to our environment and create what we believe to be a scenario in which uh, we are more capable of receiving love and the things that we need. So, we create personas every day. At work, we're a different person. At home, we're a different person. With our friends, with our family. And, not to say there's anything wrong with doing that, but just to understand where it comes from. It's like, we're fighting against a program that says, if you're not worthy, you should probably just go away and become food for someone or something that is more worthy. Like, harsh. That shit is harsh. And that's the planet we live on. But I'll tell you what, like, if there is some aspect of of this journey from a higher perspective where, souls, or whatever word you want to call it, we get into names, but I struggle with names because I believe, like, words are metaphors for the thing. It's like I have an experience, an eternal mind, an idea, or something like that, and in order to share it with somebody else without telepathy, I have to use words to create an image and then hand those words to somebody else and hope to God that their interpretation of those words creates the same image in their mind that I'm viewing in mine. Well, I will just break down that facade right now. Many times, it's like the telephone game. Like, it does not translate exactly how we would think. And even if the image is translated, the feeling about it, as soon as something is put into words, it enters into the world of duality because it becomes flesh. It becomes part of this existence. And as it filters through people's belief systems. And then you give that to somebody else and it filters through their belief system. And so, now it opens the door for judgment. So that's why a lot of times I think people have a hard time sharing their most vulnerable, intimate aspects of their lives, because as soon as it's shared, it enters into the world of duality. So it can be either liked or disliked. It can be seen as good or evil. It can be, embraced or shunned. And, like, that's some scary shit. But, here we are in this world, and, like, that belief, that pattern has to go away, but we have to integrate the parts that cannot change, the animal nature that we live in. And there's a lot of really nasty things that are being exposed in the world right now. And it's just like, there's a real big desire to be hateful and angry and totally understandably, because, when a soul wakes up, then it has to process all the trauma at one time, which comes in the form of pain, suppressed feelings, it just all comes flooding to the surface to be dealt with. And, we are going through that collectively right now. So, I mean, on that note, like, just find the space in your heart of peace. And I know that it's hard to find peace with things that seem so horrible and horrendous. But But the horrible and horrendous part of it is that we have just hidden that aspect of this existence from ourselves. You know, it's like we contain within us darkness. It's not all light, you know? And the brightest light, the brightest lights in this world are those who can integrate the darkness into the experience, because it makes one more compassionate towards the experience of others, because we all carry a shadow with us. It's unavoidable. I mean, like, in my own life, I think about, like, you know, some of the most biological things that we experience on this planet are the things that are like end up becoming the things that are like our biggest shadow, like how we experience like sexual energy and things like that. Like, I know I know in my genetic blueprint I have been a victim and a perpetrator many lifetimes over. You know, it's on this planet we consume life force energy from other living things in order to survive. And that can be physical life force energy by the plants and animals that we have to consume in order to keep our body alive, or, you know, psychological life force energy, like the thing that you know, pushes us forward even when conditions aren't ideal. um, and all that stuff goes back to childhood, you know. And I won't get too far off the tangent, but yeah, I'm really realizing that, like, in my own life, I am a soul on a mission. And you know, in a way, we forgot the mission collectively. And that's okay, because that's part everything like the belief system that we move into has to create space for everything to exist. It has to be the yin yang. It has to encompass the duality within it. So there has to be space for even the bad things, even the bad things, or it's not a sustainable belief system. It just continues to, if a belief system does not contain space for both good and evil in working towards something better, then it is a temporary belief system, and don't attach to it. So anything that tells you that certain things are evil and scarcity and anything like that, like let it be. Let it be part of the process. You know, if that is the thing, like, let that be the thing that makes you want to be a better person. If you find those things to be evil, find that energy in yourself, you know. And you know, when things seem so horrendous that it's almost unrelatable, like, still we can learn from those experiences. You know, like the way that we treat children. We have to look at them like we're all okay. Here's my belief system. We're all souls that incarnate into biological form, and that form gives us a boundary from which we can see ourselves more clearly. It's like a process of self-discovery. In a way, it's an experiment, and I don't know how much of this is like an experiment, but I know it's a process. Oh, sorry. I know it's a process that we go through in order to gain experience and knowledge. And uh, we when we come into form, it's like, okay, so it's like fish in the ocean. I would say like fish in an ocean have a hard time understanding, like have no concept of water until they leave the water and then come back in. It's like when your soul swimming in consciousness, you don't have any form from which to view your existence. It is just like it's all, there's no difference between things. And so souls incarnate into form, specifically on this planet. Duality, it creates an opposing view to create a mirror for which we can view ourselves and each other through the process. And part of that process is um, dealing with like the self-hatred by mirroring that and hating the things that we really desire in ourselves, hating that about other people. And that's part of the biological programming that's written into this particular planet, because as we as souls, and I imagine souls incarnate into other planets. Like I my thought about it is that, like, oversoul, whatever you want to call it, names, again, we're always going to go back to names. Like, names are metaphors. They are not the thing. So the thing I'm speaking of is the thing that can't really be named, but I don't know how else to communicate it. So we're just going to keep it like that. But yeah, incarnate into this planet and others, I think, like, waiting for the life on the planet to evolve to such a way where there's a species that has maximum capabilities of manifestation, manipulating their environment, like having use of thumbs and hands and being able to like maneuver the planet. And then souls are like, okay, it's time to incarnate. Like, look, this planet's ready, let's do it. And so then they incarnate into biological form, and yeah, and receive the blueprint, which is DNA. When we enter into life in this form, is like, here's your blueprint, here's what's happening on the planet, here's what we've experienced over the last like billion years. Here's everything you need to know to survive here. And then you're born into a family, and those parents are like, okay, now here's what you really need to know for right now. Like, this is actually what's happening in the world in this moment, in this environment. And when a child is born, it's like the environment dictates like how they evolve in that space. And like, if you look at wild animals or even plants and stuff like that, the biological program is so clear. It says, like, you come into this world, and if conditions aren't right for survival, for growth, like, go back to the earth, because resources on this planet, it's a closed resource system, unless we get more comets or start harvesting God knows what from God knows where. Like, this is a closed loop system. So the biological program says, like, resource management is important. And it's the challenge is, like, as a soul coming from like a infinite oneness or whatever it is, like, the concept of finite form and resource and boundary is like a concept that we actually have to learn. It's not something that is written into the genetic information, because that's not a part of the way that this planet works. So in a way, like, we create this juxtaposition because we're coming into it with an infinite imagination, an infinite perception of the way the world works, and uh, and then we try to squish that into a form, which is this body, and interact with other forms, which we are all a part of, but because of the meat suit that we wear, it feels like we're separate, but we're not. We're all the same thing that drives and motivates us. We only manifest differently based on our blueprint in this planet, and then the belief system which we um, like attach our perception to. So belief system becomes like one of the most important things we have, and at least in this time in my life, uh, being alive at this time, I feel like there's a real lack of origin story. Like, I have felt kind of lost my whole life. I've always felt like a free spirit. I was actually adopted at a very young age into a beautiful family, but still I've had like nothing to attach to. And it's hard because like I don't have I don't have the story of my ancestors to attach to. I don't have the tradition to attach to. And in a way, like, it has been a struggle in my life because I've always sort of felt a little bit like an outcast, but also a free spirit, and there's so many feelings about it. But what I'm learning now is like I'm a blank slate, and I represent something. I represent the unlimited possibilities and the things that I have allowed to be imprinted on me through trying to find myself. Like, some of that stuff has been really traumatic. And I've had to really deep dive into trauma and why a soul would choose trauma, because I believe that there's destiny. I don't think that anything I think that there's no growth where there's no change. And in this particular incarnation, we use pain as a teacher. And so we can't make the pain stop because the pain is the teacher. And I think what we have to realize is like there is pain and then there is suffering. And I believe suffering is like long pain. Like, suffering is the process of trying to avoid feeling the pain in an effort to avoid making the change that pain is asking to happen. And I believe that's what suffering is. Pain is like it's just a momentary thing. It's like I feel pain in this moment, and trauma is the story that we attach to that pain, and suffering becomes the belief system that we create based on the story we told ourselves about the pain. And you know that gets deep because our belief system is everything. We filter everything we believe about reality through that belief system. And so it becomes the most important thing we have. And like, we have sort of turned this world into like, we wear our suffering like a badge of honor. But what I'm discovering is like, pain is the teacher, but like suffering is the resistance to that, to learning the lesson. Because we incarnate into one of the harshest conditions possible. And we do this for a reason, because through the biggest pain is the potential for the most expansion, the most growth, the most like learning. And, in biological form, we have such a finite amount of time on this planet. And so souls have learned, like, if we incarnate and we like use the pain to teach us, we can learn so much. But here's the thing about this planet, like a psyche can handle only so much trauma before it breaks. Like it's like we take a big risk when we do that. And that's why, like, you can tell, like, some people's spirits are so strong. Like, you would never know the amount of pain that they've experienced. Um, but that pain gives them a view of the world that is like, that is more compassionate, that is more all encompassing of the full spectrum of human experience. And so we have, like, we can look at pain differently, not as this thing to avoid, but as this thing that is a teacher. Because the more that we learn from pain, the more we realize that, uh, you know, pain will always be there. It just, we don't have to let it drag on. We need to learn the lesson that we're meant to learn from the pain, and then integrate that into our belief system, expand our view of the world, let go of things that have the potential to cause suffering, aka long-term pain, and release them with love. Like, hey, you've taught me the lesson. I appreciate the experience, and now I will take that and move forward with it, and, you know, do my best to not cast judgment and create a dualistic view of the way I feel about the causes of my pain, turning somebody into a villain or this or that. Like, no, like, pain is just pain. It's experience. And ultimately, I see the pain in my life as showing me myself more clearly, because in a way, I put myself in a position to receive pain. And for that, I have to learn to forgive myself, because that's where it all starts. If I can't forgive myself for not believing in myself, or not standing up for my needs, and protecting myself, like, that's okay. I didn't know. I didn't understand. And I sought that from external things. But now I know that everybody is in this own experience, and we can't hold each other up right now. Like, the whole purpose of everything culminating exactly where it is like, at the end of the day, we have to believe in ourselves, number one, because we all have a lot of processing that is going to happen, is happening. And through that process, like, hate to say it, but you cannot put your strength and your stability and your worthiness in anyone else's hands. Not right now. Like, we have to heal. We have to, like, learn to love that child inside of us. You know, that is the mission. We have to do that before we can do anything else. You know, we have to understand, we have to have a mutual understanding about the way the world works before we can give that power to anybody else. So what's happening right now is, like, you know, anything that you can do to express a joy, a belief, experience, personal experience, because we, you know, ultimately, it's just so deep. It's so deep. I can go on forever, but like ultimately we all come together in this experience to learn the lessons, and that expands the knowledge of the hive mind, hive mind. So we have to share our experience. Like, I believe that's why subconsciously we created social media, because we have to share what we've learned. We have to value each other. We have to value ourselves first enough to know, like, hey, my experience on this planet is like, there's nuggets there. It's valuable. I have to share it. So start sharing it, because we need to learn from each other. And ultimately what we need to learn is that, like, good and evil is just a construct of the mind. We are infinite souls incarnated into a restrictive form to give us perspective on our existence. We are not this meat suit. And anybody who thinks we're going to, like, get in a spaceship and travel around the world in this meat suit is just like, come on. That's not what the point is. That's not what the point is. The point is to accept this for what it is and know that there is something. Hey, Hawk. Oh, that's cool. Hawk just flew by. That there is something bigger than this body and this meat suit. Like, I'm sorry, I'm in my 40s. Like, I'm not. I can't keep up. If the whole existence of this planet says that I need to be young and fertile and for the rest of my life in order for people to give me any value, like, that is not a belief system that's sustainable for anybody, or that men have to be this way or women have to be this way to fit into a relationship. Well, then screw relationships. Like, what's the point of perpetuating the species if we're just not happy with the way the species is? Like, ultimately that's like the big choice, is like, we decide if this particular experiment continues on. Like, we took a big risk incarnating onto this planet, because the duality is harsh, and it's like, it requires a lot of pain for somebody to break out of that and become self-aware. And there's a big risk, because, like, in choosing a life that has so much trauma involved in it, like, the the ego, which is a part of the protection mechanism that is built into the program of this biological form, like, uh, is set up to try to uh, minimize the experience of pain, which is in complete opposite to the point of incarnating into this particular planet, which, there's so much pain here that, like, we can learn really fast. That's why we incarnate into this planet, because, like, it's a really, it's a hard class. It's a hard class, but man, when we pass this class, like, we understand so much more. Like, yeah. But it's a choice, we choose to incarnate here. And as a species, like, we can make a choice at some point and say that maybe this planet is, like, it's too much. But, like, who cares? Like, what are we saving the planet for? What are we like, let's be real here. What's really happening here? We choose. I mean, we have one generation of lowered birth rate, and already, like, we will see things come into balance more, like the scarcity mindset, all that stuff. It's going to go away, but we have to do it. Like, we're in the liminal space between the death of a previous belief system and the birth of a new belief system. Like, we literally have to create it, because that's the nature of a belief system. Like, you either it's like a garden. You either plant the seeds that you want to grow, or if you don't make a choice, then weeds will grow. So, you know, that's our choice. We're creating this world right now. We don't have to take any of that with us into the future, but we do have to know that the pain, the things that, like, the disgusting aspects of our human nature are in a way part of this experience, and we have to, like, acknowledge that part of our shadow and do a better job of, embodying our true purpose in this planet and sharing that information. Yeah. Especially as parents with children, you have a very, very important job. Like, you bring those kids into this world and you immediately, like, they don't have any, the first few years of their life, it's all receive information, learn, receive information. Those years are so crucial. And if there's trauma and stuff, like, the information that they're receiving is like, the world is unsafe. If the world is unsafe, then it begins a biological program that says, go back to the earth, conditions aren't right. So we have to stop that cycle. We have to take care of our children. If we need to create communities around doing it, and we need to treat them like respect, because they come on this planet, they get their genetic blueprint, and we have to share the mission. What is the mission? What's your mission? What's the mission? What's the collective mission? We have to decide that, and then we have to start sharing that with the future generations. We have to start moving in that direction, and we can't change everything overnight, but it takes a lot of energy to turn around a ship, but you just got to move in the direction of things that your intuition, your heart tells you is the action that creates the most benefit for the most people, most life possible. It's the only way to balance the other side of the equation, which says there's not enough. We're in competition. Anyway, well, that was a good rant. We'll keep it there. Talk to you guys again soon. Love you.